mental health disorders, both in childhood and in adulthood. Now, you find that as a parent, it's difficult for you to parent appropriately because there are wounds that you are sitting with from your own parent-child relationship that were not healed. And it's now difficult to love, to nurture, to support your own children in an appropriate way. Or on the other extreme, because of these difficulties, you find yourself putting in so much effort. You know, you are not getting a break. You are not giving yourself a break because you want to make sure that you are the parent you never had, you know, and you are so exhausted. Your kids even resent you because you are doing so much. You have a bore, you know, and you find that we are acting in the way that we act in our parenthood because of some of the difficulties that we experience in our childhood from our parents or from caregivers that were around us. So there's the concept that is called the good enough parent, and it talks about, it's actually the good enough mother, but it speaks about parenting and caregiver, the parents and the caregivers overall, and that being a good enough mother or being a good enough parent is all your child needs. A child doesn't need a perfect mom. A child doesn't need a perfect dad because we are not in a perfect world to start with, you know? And when the child experiences you as who you are with both good and bad emotions, because that's how we were created, they learn to manage good and bad emotions. They become more resilient. And when they experience good and bad emotions outside of this safe environment, they are able to manage it and they are able to distinguish, they are able to learn from themselves, and their self-concept becomes one that is very realistic because they've experienced both good and bad. And this is not to say we beat our children because we want to be good enough and to combine the good with the bad, you know, but it's to say, if I come back from work and I'm not okay because I was angry at work, I had a fight with someone, I'm able to say to my child, you know, I'm not feeling well today. I'm not going to be able to play with you. I had a very bad
Mrs. Prudence, you're cutting.
I think it's a network problem. Because she's frozen. Let's just maybe give her some little time so that she can be able to come back.
Okay, let me just call her in private and let her know that she's cutting. Or in the meantime, I saw that there's a question from maybe the question, can you raise it at the end of the presentation, because we just want to see if you can maybe finish your slides and then we can ask, so that we'll be able to get the gist of what he's talking about. Thank you. Are you back, sis?
Yes, I apologize.
Okay, you can keep on.
My router just switched off, so I had to switch it off quickly. I'm sorry about that.
No problem. Thanks.
And I've lost my train of thought. Can someone please assist me, Bengu?
Oh, okay.
I don't know now. As I try to share.
For parents, parent-child relational, yeah, you were there.
Okay, thank you, sis. So the good enough mother or the good enough parent reminds us to be real with our children, and to allow them to experience and to practice to manage good and bad emotions. Part of what impacts the parent-child relationship negatively is parental difficulties between the two parents. When mom and dad going through a separation, or they are not separated, but they are fighting, or they are for some other reason so focused in their own difficulties that neither of them, or most of the time, there is an inconsistency in the providing of the needs of the child consistently. So you find that the child finds themselves feeling neglected, feeling unwanted, feeling all sorts of negative emotions now and again. And over time, this builds up to the child experiencing or being likely to experience mental health disorders in their childhood or in adulthood. Remember that the child is entirely dependent on the parent for all their basic needs, you know, and most of the time parents are able to cater for the physical needs. The child is bathed, the child is clothed, they ate, but they didn't even get a hug. You know, it's been a month, no one has told this child that I love you, or no one has told this child that you actually look beautiful, you know, and some of these things, they add to something in the child, you know, the self-concept. No one believes in this child. No one cares to check how was school, you know, and all of these things. And you find that the child starts developing a negative self-concept. And over time, you find that they then experience a majority of these negative symptoms of disorders such as anxiety and depression. So mediation and parenting plans help parents to be able to, while not being able to relate well to each other, but to have a plan in place to be able to cater for the needs of the child. And then we will just jump to the next one, which is the unresolved grief. So, you know, sitting here, all of us, we know that the journey to life is that you are born, you live, and at one stage, one point or another, you die. You know, it's natural. We know this. And we can say it from our sleep when we wake up, you know, it's something that we know. However, when we lose a loved one, or when someone close to us passes away, it hurts. And the pain, it's almost as if we didn't know that there's death, you know? The pain becomes so much, and sometimes it's so overwhelming, and it's difficult for us to manage it and to heal from it. You know, you find yourself at one point, you are so angry at yourself for not having done certain things, angry at the person that has died, because how dare you die? You know, you find yourself in denial. It's like, hi man, this is a joke. This person will walk through the door now and tell us, what to know, this is a joke. Or you expect their call even when you know that they've died, you know, finding yourself like, okay, maybe if I could have done this, this would have happened, and I wouldn't have, you know, there's just a lot that we go through, you know, in processing the grief, finding ourselves feeling so low, feeling so sad, stuck even, because how do I live my life without this person? What is life without this person? You know, think about a mother that lost their child, or a partner that lost their spouse, or a child that lost their parent. You know, death is so cruel and it's so painful. And it's never neat. The process of resolving all of these emotions is never neat, you know. And there's no linear way to say you will start here and get to this point and then here. It's not neat. It's very untidy. It's very messy. And because of this, it leaves us, imagine all of this that is happening in your mind, how you feel emotionally, you know, it leaves us in a place where we are just not okay. Sometimes we develop anxiety because we are fearful. If this person died, who's going to die next? You know, what's going to happen now? There's just this questions that don't have answers that we are sitting with, or if it's someone who we were very close with. Yes, I'm not fearful of death, but this was my spouse, you know, what is life then without them? How do I become happy if this person is not there? You know, there's just a lot that happens. And as we navigate through all of this, we hope that we will get to a point where we accept that this person has passed, and I need to continue to live my life. I need to continue to do things that make me happy. I need to continue to be functional in the areas that I'm in the parts of my life that need me the most. I need to function. And, you know, saying this feels so unsympathetic, you know, because how do you? But when grief is resolved, a scar does not hurt, you know. You feel, for an example, a person that has resolved grief, when something happens that is a trigger, they are able to empower others. Yes, they might still feel the loss, they might still feel the absence of the person, but it does not cause them to be dysfunctional in the areas of their life. It does not cause them to become overly emotional in the moment, you know, an uncontrollable rage of emotions that just bursts without an invitation or without being able to control them. They are able to function and they're able to be okay even when they're reminded that the person has been lost. So sometimes we lose people who are dear to us, and it is difficult to unravel all of this resolvement process. You know, it's difficult to navigate the stages of grief to get to a point where we are able to function. And as we go through all of this, there's things that are happening at work that need you. There's things that are happening at school that need you. Things that are happening all around us that need us to be fully functional. And because we are not at our best, we are unable to function at our best. And we find ourselves lagging behind in things that we were supposed or would have in regular, or rather in normal circumstances, would have been able to navigate with ease. And it's difficult now to navigate. So it is important to acknowledge that death is painful. You know, sit in those emotions, process them. If you need to speak to someone that's going to help you to be able to process these emotions so that you can get to a stage where you are functioning and you are able to experience positive emotions, even though you have lost someone. So there's quite a lot of things that can be said on the risk factors or the causes of mental health disorders, you know, but these are the most common that I felt I wanted to share with us today. Think about everything that we've covered so far and think about, how am I supposed to function normally? How am I supposed to be okay, you know, if all of this happens? And obviously, when we are unable to manage all of this, it gets to that cycle that we spoke about earlier, you know, that perpetuates itself. And we find ourselves then likely to develop depression, to develop anxiety, to develop personality disorders, because now I don't trust anyone, you know, I'm paranoid because of the things that are happening around us. And I think, you know, this is just a reminder that we are not, sometimes we are not cruel because we are just evil. You know, we are not just bad. We don't, the behaviors, the negative behaviors that we display sometimes are an indication of the pain that we bear, you know. And it is important then to always be sympathetic and to always be compassionate to each other, because we are all going through a lot, you know. And sometimes it is easy to deal with what we are going through. Sometimes it is not, you know, and it is important to then gauge, how do I seek for help? When do I seek for help? And so forth. But okay, it's not all bad. There are ways to manage it. We'll talk about a few just now. So in terms of the management, so management of mental health disorders is a combination of behavioral changes, a combination of professional support, lifestyle adjustments, sometimes even medication, but we'll talk to some of these now. So there are a lot of studies that speak about the link between physical health and emotional health. And when I talk about physical health, I'm not saying that when you take care of yourself physically, emotionally, and psychologically, all your struggles are going to be resolved, you know. But when you take care of your physical health, you are better able to deal with your problems because your mind is clearer. You are better able to regulate your emotions, and it gives you an advantage to be able to deal with whatever is in front of you in a more productive way. So when we talk about physical health, I guess we all know about physical health. You know, we've been taught in schools, even from primary school, we were taught about physical health. But it is important to keep talking about physical health and what it entails, because when we go through a crisis or a mental health challenge, what becomes in the prefrontal cortex of our brain is the difficulty that is ahead of us. And everything else that we know goes to the back of our minds. You know, we forget to do simple things like drinking water or, you know, opening the windows where we are sitting. So it is important to keep talking about this so that it becomes part of our day-to-day life, and that we are able to manage then what we go through on a day-to-day basis. Think about how emotionally unstable you become when you are constipated. You know, it's difficult to even smile or to be happy about anything that is happening. And that is why it is important to maintain a good level of physical health. Now, the first thing with physical health is our diet. You know, when we've eaten junk versus when we've eaten a good bowl of healthy leafy green salad, for instance, we feel different for both, you know. You feel lighter, you feel like you can conquer the world when you've eaten healthy. Your body, you are in control of your body, you can carry your body, you know. And like when you feel heavy and lumpy, imagine you are sad and already you are feeling exhausted, you feel like you want to sleep, and now you eat junk and it just makes you feel worse than it perpetuates the symptoms that you already wake up in the morning. Think about when you haven't had a good night's sleep versus when you've slept well. You know, emotionally, there's a big difference between these two people. A person that slept well is better able to regulate their emotions. In fact, they experience more positive emotions as compared to a person that hasn't slept well. You know, and even if this is just one person, on the day that you've slept well, you are better functioning emotionally compared to the days that you have not slept well. Sleep is very important, you know, and I know that it's very difficult to maintain a good sleep, especially if we are stressed and we are going through a lot. And for that, it is important then to develop a routine that helps us to get to sleep, you know, because remember, your mind is doing a lot of thinking. There's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot that is happening in our minds. And when we get to bed, remember, that's when now the kids are quiet and there's no one that is talking to you. You are just by yourself and all the thoughts come, you know. So you need to remember that the ultimate goal for going to bed, or rather the ultimate goal for falling asleep, is relaxation. You need to relax so that you can fall asleep. So do things that help you to relax, you know, even if it's listening to soft, soothing, instrumental jazz music in the background, that's going to help you to sleep, having a nice bath before bedtime, you know, a routine. If maybe you have children, to know what's okay, we read, we pray, we do something that's going to enable us to relax and fall asleep. Hlengiwe, you can jump in.
Okay, I just want to be sure that we can maybe finish at 8 so that we can ask questions. So I saw that there are some questions in the chat box, so maybe we can hold those questions till 8 o'clock when we are done. The presentation will finish at 8, and then after 8 we will then address those questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Thank you for that. So I'll just wrap up in the next 7 minutes, and then we'll do the questions so that we can finish by 8. Is that okay?
No, I think according to the instruction I got from Pastor Maichu, the presentation must finish at 8. Then after 8 till 8:30, it will be questions.
Oh, okay. All right. No problem then. Thank you. Yeah, I might finish a few minutes before 8 though, but yeah, let's see how it goes. So yeah, physical health is
She's supposed it's still okay. Even if you can finish the next coming 7 minutes, then they ask questions. It's still fine. I'll come back. It's not a problem.
All right, thanks, good. So yeah, physical health is very important. Remember, when we are engaging in physical health, our blood is circulating quite well in our bodies. We are getting oxygen in our brain, and all of that enables us to function better than how we would have if those activities were not happening in our bodies, you know. Maintaining healthy relationships is the next one. Maintaining healthy relationships, having connections with people, you know. We were not created to be put on a strong face and we're like, I'm happy alone, but no one is really happy alone. You know, we need people. And I'm not just referring to romantic partners, maranje generally, sisters, as friends, engaging. Of course, we're not going to be close with everyone, you know, but have people who you know that these are my people. These are people that I can talk to. Yes, I'm not going to talk about everything all the time, but I can be vulnerable with these people. I can be myself with these people. Right now, relax, you get the strength that you need to be able to deal with that problem whenever that you will need to do with it. So playing and laughing, you know, don't be serious all the time, like just laugh, you know, joke, you know, of course appropriately, and not doing things overboard, but you know, laugh, play, you know, don't be serious all the time. Another thing that is important is for self-care. You know, a lot of the times we find ourselves in administrative positions just all around. You are a mother, you are a carer, you are this and that, you know, and you are just doing things. And you find that because of the dryness of the cup that starts creeping in, you know, moody all the time, you are sad all the time, you're not going to be able to be a good parent. You're not going to be able to be a good pastor, because we're going to come to you and you're going to tell us to, fuck off, because you are not in a good space to be able to hold whatever it is that you need to hold. So it's important to take care of ourselves. Taking care of ourselves is not being selfish. You are not taking from the people around you. But you are giving to them. Because what you are doing for yourself when we plan for a possible fire in a premise or in a property, we do that before the fire comes. Do this. I can quickly do breathing exercises. I can do meditation. I can pray. I can go to my corner. I can call this friend. I can do this, so that you do not find yourself spiraling down and getting to a point where it is difficult to pull yourself out. Have an escape plan for your mental health. Prioritize things that you know are helpful. Talk to someone that can suggest things to you, and part also, of course, of knowing yourself. Trusting in God. Sometimes there are situations that you can just see, no, and knowing that there is someone who is bigger than us, who can handle it, who can control it, gives us the assurance that I can rest today because this person has it. Think about a child who comes to their parent and says, this and this happened, and they are telling their parent because they are giving it to the parent, and after that they go, they play, and they are happy. And that's the same effect that trusting in God has on us, because we know that He is an all-knowing, all-powerful God who is omnipresent, who is able to deliver me from this, and even if He's not, because of His ability to be able to deliver me, I can trust that not being delivered from it is His will, and it is the best option for me. Trusting in God does a lot, because most of what we go through are things that are out of our control. We can't control. Think about a parent who has a child that is now fallen into a drug addiction. What is that parent going to do? The child is addicted. It's difficult, but when they trust in God, and the fear and the challenges and the symptoms of anxiety and depression that they might be experiencing are slightly alleviated, the mind clears and they are better able to deal with the addiction of their child. Sometimes when our best efforts fail, it's important to acknowledge that, and to seek professional help. Talk to a counselor, talk to a therapist, talk to a psychologist. They are all different, but they all have a place in mental health. Speak to someone, and sometimes we get to a point where the anxiety is so severe that there's nothing else that we can do but worry. There's nothing else that we can do. Even getting out of bed, bathing, and doing simple things for ourselves is impossible And then we need to then be able to be open to talking about medication, you know, so that we can get to a point where we can do things and we can start behavioral change. We can start cognitive change that can lead us to a point where we have obtained health in our mental health. But in closing, I just want to say that, you know, in a different way when it's the strangers, you know, and all I kept thinking was that sympathy, compassion, you know, because when your son does something bad, the sympathy and the compassion that we have is that of saying, I want to pull my son from this behavior. I want to help them, you know. Of course, in severe symptoms, but don't meet the requirement to be diagnosed, you know. So just in this room, over 10 people, my math is not so good, but over 10 people are struggling with depression and anxiety, you know. And what do we do then as a community? What do we do as families to help each other manage and deal with these symptoms? So let's be sensitive to each other. Let's take care of ourselves. And let's be mindful that we are going through a lot, you know, and we need, sometimes it's difficult to help ourselves. Be compassionate to each other, you know. And the peace of God, which passes all understanding, will guard our minds and our hearts through Jesus Christ. And, you know, I cannot but say we are able to respond in a way that is not going to lead us to experience some of the things that we spoke about. And even if we have experienced these things, we can, I think, Hulisani, you unmuted by mistake, I think. If not, you can talk.
Yeah.
Is it my connection or?
You can finish up.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, I think I'm done, but I was just saying that we need that protection. We need that reassurance, you know, that protective layer from God, where our hearts and our minds are shielded by Him. And that causes us to not be anxious of anything, as Scripture tells us. Thank you. Maybe you can help us, maybe to do the questions and to just facilitate that.
Thank you so much, Sis Prudence. What's a very powerful presentation. So much needed for today's day. As we see that there are a lot of there's a lot of things that are going on, and people really need to know how to cope with depression and stress. So I will first start with, I think, Mobile, your hand was raised first before we go to Pastor.
Good evening, everyone. My question is based on grief. I've heard of something called prolonged grief. I just wanted to understand, when does grief become unhealthy?
Okay, thank you. I think that's Mobile. So that's a very complicated question, and it's complicated in that even in research, there is no linear process that says, okay, when you are grieving, you need to grieve for 2 months or you need to grieve for 2 years. There's no timeline for grief, you know, but we can say grief is prolonged if it has gone over if it has gone over some years and the person has still not been able to maintain functioning over years since the bereavement has happened. So it's difficult, but it's just to note and to say, if bereavement or grief goes on for years without being resolved, it is then considered prolonged.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Before we go to Pastor Nkuna, Sis Prudence, can I ask that you leave your business card maybe in the chat box, so that we can, whoever would want to maybe bring their child or even go themselves to see how they can get hold of you after the meeting. You can maybe leave it in the chat box. Then we can go to Pastor Nkuna.
Thank you very much. Sister Prudence, thank you as well for the presentation. Much appreciated, profound and very informative. So I appreciate that. I've got one question with regards to grief as well. I'm just thinking, you know, in circumstances that involve a suicide, there is a sense that some people are simply seeking attention when they do announce or when they tell people or when they write on Facebook or anywhere that they're going to end their lives. And you know, we tend to think that no, this person is just seeking attention. But my question is, you know, what are the signs that, you know, as leaders we should look at to really differentiate between, you know, a genuine threat and, you know, simply attention seeking? So if maybe you could assist with that. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So yes, it's very true that a lot of the times, you know, you even see in the comments that people are saying, if you wanted to die, why didn't you die? You are just seeking attention, you know. But the reality is that we can never know, especially at face value, we can never know whether something is a real threat or not. And our responsibility at all times is to treat such as a real threat until we know for sure, you know. Assuming can only make the situation that the person is going through even worse and can push them even further to the likelihood of eventually committing suicide. So the truth is that when someone wants to commit suicide and they tell someone else or they reach out to social media or what, they are seeking attention, you know, because they are at a point where they've tried everything and nothing seems to work. And they are saying, what they are saying is that this is my last hope. And if something comes out of this, then I might live, you know. But it's difficult to word it or to say it accurately because of the intensity of what they are going through. So even though they might be seeking attention, it's probably not for the reasons that we actually think, but it's a cry for help, to say, I'm drowning, you know, I'm struggling, save me. And what we usually do is that we push them further into the brink of eventually committing suicide rather than helping. So my response is that let's treat all cry for help as an actual threat, because how we respond would determine or might determine whether that person actually commits suicide or not. And if it's a prank, we can be angry later, or be frustrated later. But if the difference in what we are going to say might cause or determine the life of someone, then we always need to be careful how we respond to such.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Can you go to ABQ now?
Thank you very much. We really appreciate the presentation. My question is, how do you then support somebody who has mental illness? And I want to be specific, who has a bipolar that was triggered by trauma and it was diagnosed. I don't know if I'm audible.
Yes, you are. You are audible.
Yes. How do you then support a person like that?
Okay. So people are different, and a lot of the times we shy away. We think that there's a solution that fits for everyone, and it's not true. It's important to communicate with the person and find out from them, how can I assist you? What to you would be the best way to assist you as you are going through this, and allow the have an open communication and open discussion with the person, and to discuss and say, how about I do this, or how about I check on you on the phone, or how about, and then you discuss it with them. Because remember that the most important, hierarchy of needs, physiological needs, emotional needs, and whatnot, when someone goes through a mental health crisis, it's because there are needs that may have not been in the past or currently not being met. And the person feels an overwhelm in needs that are not being met, such that it pushes them to not be able to deal with the emotions that are evoked by some of those. So one of the emotional needs that we have is that we need people around us, we need to know that we can do this, and so being around the people, sometimes not physically all the time, depending on the type of person that they are, but ensuring that they have a sense and they know that they belong, they know that I have people, they know that someone is there for me, but also it's to also acknowledge that, I can only support this person as a friend. But they also need, especially with bipolar, they also need professional help that can help them manage and deal with on a day-to-day the symptoms that they're going through. But beyond that, to deal with what might have caused them to experience this. When yours is to help them with the day-to-day functioning, but they need to be able to deal with the root and to deal with that, and encouraging them to say, okay, speak to someone, consider this and do this, encouraging them to be able to seek the help that they need to deal with the root of the problem is also very important.
Are you answered, AB? Okay.
Okay, yeah,
Welcome.
I am.
Thanks. So the next question, I think the next person was Sisnomvula Batsela, but since she said she's got a load shedding, I'll just read the question from the text. He said, are we able to self-diagnose? Lately, you hear people using depression or anxiety loosely. Is it possible to self-diagnose, or must we go to health facility? That's the question.
Hey, and you know, she's so right, because it's almost as if depression is an emotion now. I feel so depressed. I feel so anxious, you know. Okay, anxious is, but it's all we use it very loosely, as she says, and it it loses its true essence of what it is, you know, because having a bad day and feeling sad because you were expecting a text from your mom and you didn't get it is different to being depressed, you know, and we need to be very careful of those. Please don't self-diagnose. It's not recommended and it's not good, because you might diagnose yourself wrong. And also, self-diagnoses cause us to focus on the diagnosis and to hang on to them. You know, you hear people talk about, I've been struggling with depression for 12 years, you know, like we hold on to the diagnosis as if we are unable to move away from it, you know. Think about when someone is diagnosed with high blood pressure. You know, if you work on yourself, you change your diet, you exercise, you do this and that, the high blood pressure gets to a point where it's you are free from it, you know. Yes, you are going to have the inclination to, if mhlambe you eat bad or not, you're going to fall back into it, but you can get to a point where you are not diagnosed with high blood pressure. And I like to think of mental health disorders, some mental health disorders, the same way, you know, that when you are diagnosed professionally and accurately by a professional, you can get to a point where you are not depressed anymore. You are not anxious anymore. You know, you don't have a personality disorder anymore, because you've worked through it. You've understood what has caused it. You've managed it, and you've got to a helping stage and a functioning stage. So please don't self-diagnose. And be careful also, even when you are diagnosed by a professional, that you don't hold on to that and claim it as your own. You know, yes, it's the diagnosis, it's correct, but it's where you are currently. And you need to identify where you are currently, work towards a more positive future, so that there is positive change that you invoke and you put on and you work on, and that changes. Is it possible? Health facility, yes. Then you need to seek services of a psychologist that can diagnose and treat mental health disorders. Yeah, I hope I've answered that.
Thank you so much. We go to Asipe Sona Dunster.
Okay, thank you. My question was mainly about when you mentioned about the parents and children's relationship, and how sometimes parents are not able to parent to their full capacity because of their own traumas that they have faced before, right? Now, because we know that the youth of now, or the young people of now, are more prone to being educated on trauma and mental health, how do then, as maybe like an SYL leader, do we support a child that can identify that I'm not able to get my parent to be there for me because I can notice some traces of trauma? How then do we support the child or the youth that is not experiencing that relationship that they need from the parent? That's a question.
Yeah, I think the most important thing would be to support the parent, you know, so that they can deal with whatever it is that is a barrier to them being the best parent to their children. And ways in which we can do that is to remember that all parents are jealous of their children, jealous of their parenting, you know. Parenting is a very sensitive thing. Think about when someone says to a parent, your child is doing what, you become hurt. There's something that is sensitive about parenting that makes it or rather that makes the task of reaching out to the parent much more difficult, because you need to be careful to not suggest to the parent that you are a horrible parent and you need to work on yourself, because then it's never going to happen, but to be a positive support that pulls the parent to a helping position where they can help themselves to better their own lives so that they can better the lives of the children. So ways to do that is to maybe be a positive influence to the child, to visit, to say things, to say things to the parent that suggest that doing certain things might be helpful. Sometimes, especially if it's a personal relationships, to share your own shortcomings, to say, hey, I'm struggling with my children in this and this, and I was wondering if we could do this together, to walk this journey together and assist each other as parents, because the reality is that as parents, none of us are perfect, and we do need to support each other. But when you come to a parent as an all-knowing, authoritative figure in parenting, you already push that parent away. Parents cannot, especially living parents, cannot be replaced in a child's life. You cannot do for that child what the parent needs to do if that parent is still alive. Yes, your support is going to be meaningful. It's going to do a lot in their lives, but it's not going to close the gap of what their own parent needs to do. And it's important then to, as you are supporting, being loving, nurturing, to also work on equipping and facilitating the help that the parent needs to get so that they can, I hope I've answered your question, Asi.
Yes, you have. Thank you.
Thank you, sis.
Thank you. I think my question, I don't see hands and I don't see questions on the chat box. But I've got one question also before we wrap it up. So now these days we find, I think after COVID has left a lot of people under a huge mental challenge or depression. But they're in denial. They're in denial. Some, you see maybe a colleague at work, their performance is down. They maybe drink a lot, trying to to deal with whatever they're facing with. So as a friend or as a colleague, how best can you try to assist someone who is in denial, but you can see that they are really, really struggling? Maybe as a colleague and also as a leader of your church as well. If you see that maybe this youth is, this child is struggling, but they're in denial, maybe because they've got, of course, trust issues. So how can you assist in such cases? Thank you.
Yeah. So remember that the person is experiencing whatever they are experiencing because something was damaged, and the ultimate goal is to repair whatever it was that was damaged. And you might not be able to repair it wholly or alone, but the ultimate goal is to do what you can in repairing whatever it is. Remember that avoidance is a coping mechanism. So the fact that the person is avoiding it means that akafuni ukuthi thununga, and they don't want to talk about it because it hurts and they avoid, but ultimately they do need to deal with it. So it's also important to note that sometimes
Thank her on her absence or for being with us, for being a brilliant speaker. I see the comments section that we all enjoyed her presentation. I hope it was fruitful to all of us. I'll just maybe hand over to you, Pastor Mahichu, if you've got a few words to say, and then you can probably close for us with the word of prayer.
There's nothing much to say, but to say thank you, Siswam, for availing yourself and for your wonderful presentation. I hope and pray that that was it's informative, and whoever that is here will be able to use it at their disposal, and it will also help us as leaders to understand this topic that is ravaging our youth. We just want to say thank you and God bless you. We will meet again tomorrow for another presentation, same times, same platforms. Let us close our eyes in prayer. Dear God in the highest, we would like to say thank you for the portion of prayer and for allowing us to attend this seminar. Give us strength and the courage and the wisdom. Be with us until we meet again tomorrow. Amen.
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 Apologies for being
Amen.
disconnected.
Amen.
Yeah, no, we appreciate you a lot, Sis Prudence. I think Pastor Maichu was just saying that we really, really appreciate you availing your time.
Thank you very much, Lenny.
Linda, the host.
Thanks, Mama Lulu. Thanks, Mama Lulu, for holding.
Thank you. You can just stop the